Good morning, everyone. This is Charlotte, and we're chatting in cars. It's a podcast dedicated to me picking random topics out of a little plastic bag and talking about them. Okay, it is finally Friday, Freya's Day. Oh, thank God. Trying to hit reverse. That's a sign of good day coming. I am driving. Yes, you will hear beeping, you'll hear indicating, you'll hear me screaming at random bad drivers. I don't hold back. There is a trigger warning at the start of this podcast because yes, I swear, and yes, I talk about sensitive topics, and today might be a sensitive topic for you. It is disciplining children. And if you listen to any of the other podcasts, you'll know that my mum was weird with her discipline, to say the least. A very traditional way in some ways, yes. The way she disciplined her children, she had 4 of them, so of course it was a bit of a handful. 4 of them in poverty. So shit was already stressful before you throw the kids in. 4 kids, one of which had ADHD, my oldest, which is my brother. So he was a behaviour case from the start. But the 3 girls that followed, and I'm the middle girl, we were alright. None of us were particularly, a pain in the ass. So it's interesting that the first one would be the problem, and then set the tone for the rest of us, which I found slightly irritating. Because whatever my brother did, my mum assumed the slightest hint of, copying him, you'd get your ass kicked. He's like, don't be like your brother. Don't be like your brother. So, yeah. Oh my goodness, come on, guy. Do you love it when people approach intersections and they just shit themselves? It's like, am I even in a car anymore? Do they have like a mid, existential crisis? It's like, I don't know where I am anymore. Who am I? Well, you're in a Suzuki and you're trying to turn right. Anyway, assholes. Not really. Anyway, so my mum was a very hands-on mum, and when I say she was a hands-on mum, I don't mean that she was cuddly. I mean that she smacked the fuck out of me. I don't know if you've had one of those mums. People in low socioeconomic status tend to have, hands-on parents. It's usually the mum beating the shit out of the kids. Sometimes it's the dad. Luckily, even though my dad was a berserker and he was abusive, he wasn't a hands-on dad in that way. He never physically hit us. All of his abuse came from verbal, psychological, emotional abuse. Emotionally, he was very standoffish. He didn't connect at all. I think he tried to drive me to like a sports practice of a kind, because we all got signed up to some kind of a sport at some point. I don't know why. But emotionally, he'd sit in the car and read a newspaper and ignore me. So I'm like, okay. He wanted to give the appearance of being a dad without actually being a dad. So that's what I got from that. I'm going, okay, whatever, man. Okay, as long as you're not fucking going berserk, I'm happy. And when he did go off on his fucking rants, yeah, I knew at that point he was not being a dad. So his form of discipline was to shout and throw things and scream at you. Especially if you let incense sticks from one end of the house. That's the reason I moved out, is because somehow we have a 4-bedroom, or had one. We had a 4-bedroom house. The front room's at the front of the house. My bedroom was at the back of the house. It was a long house-ish. And somehow he smelled the incense stick and he just came storming up the passageway and, went to go hit me. And that was the turning point where I said, look, I'm not staying. I don't give a fuck. At this point, I'm not staying. And I think I was 18 at that point. So I started looking at really moving things forwards to move out. And I moved out at 19, so I had to stay with him for a further year or so after that. But I managed to get signed on to Centrelink, and they did a waiver where I could move out without my parents being held accountable or something like that. I remember signing a waiver. I don't know why. Because legally, at 18, I was an adult. I could just move out. I don't know why I had to sign a waiver. Apparently there was some kind of thing where you have to... They had custody of my care or something till 21 or some shit like that. I don't know. It's a weird welfare system. But at 18, I was like, I'm ready to go. At 19, I finally got to move out. And I moved out with my now ex-husband, who was my boyfriend at the time. And a bunch of his mates. That's the only thing I can draw from that. My dad was that I was terrified of him for years. Just years, terrified. Every time I was near him, it was like touching a nerve. I hated it. I didn't like him. I didn't want anything to do with him, to to be honest. And I had to live with him. So there's a form of torture. So if you're choosing to react to your children that way in a disciplinary terms, I suggest not, because they will probably not like you afterwards. And so now, even when I'm driving in a car with my dad, which is a once in a blue moon thing because I just don't like being around him particularly, I find very uncomfortable because it's just a silence and it's random light talk is like, what you've been up to, and it's really weird. There's no real connection. So I'm pretty much sitting in a car with this stranger who, you know, abused me for years. It's a very odd relationship. I don't think I've got daddy issues from it because I'm like, I think I came out of that pretty resilient, because I should have, you know, either become like him. By the book, if you're looking at the textbook case of what happens, is you either become like them or you pick up coping mechanisms which will be destructive. I didn't. I'm very surprised by that, because right now, given the way I was raised, and I've looked at other people who've had a similar upbringing, they become like serial killers and shit. So I'm pretty lucky, I think, in that way. Or maybe I was just, you know, really looked after by the, you know, something in the ether. I'm pretty proud of the way, you know, it didn't turn out. I've never done drugs. I've smoked maybe once or twice. I've taken a puff of a cigarette, a puff of a cigar, and that's it. Never done drugs. I got through my destructive phase, 2008, and not destructive phase 2018, but everything just collapsed. So I managed to keep rebuilding and getting stuff straight, and you know, there's something. I think I was very looked after. If you're talking in sort of divine terms there, because it could have gone really tits up. So the alternative source of parenting was my mum, and my mum was hands-on abusive. I've got physical, pothole. I've got physical damage from what she's done to us. I've got a cracked jaw, cracked eye socket, you know, it's like, but her background was one of the similar. So her mum had no problem smacking her around, and her sisters, and she came from a family of 4 girls. Low income poverty as well. So she's only sort of reflecting what she's picked up from her mom. My granddad was very soft-tempered, actually, funny enough, who was her husband. So the grandma was the fiery one. She was the mad Irish Catholic. And she would, you know, she'd drink and she'd take it out on the girls. It was a very rough background. There's a lot of things that fed into my grandma's upbringing. As far as I know, she came from money. So she was well off, but she married down, if that makes sense, in a horrible way. She married for love, and she skipped country. She was Catholic, she married a Protestant, and they skipped country, and they were poor for the rest of their lives. But I would hope that they loved each other. I mean, that's ideally what you'd get out of that. I am sadly a romantic. So, you know, you can't really romanticize poverty, but at the same time, at least they married for love and not money. I do remember seeing pictures of my grandma with her brothers, because she was one of something like 13 or something. And all the boys had their own little sort of, you know, Rolls Royces or whatever they were. You know, the old school kinds of cars. And I found it, you know, I mean, she's my hero for marrying for love, I'll tell her that. Or maybe she was just really willful. You know, I can imagine that. She's like, fuck you, I'm going to marry him anyway. Parents are like, no, he's not going to look after you. It's like, oh, I don't know, but he was a lovely man. As far as I remember my granddad being, he was always a gentleman. It's like Fred Astaire. He's gorgeous. And I know somewhere in the ether he's helping someone else, because he couldn't help himself if he tried when he was alive. But you had my fiery Catholic, you know, Irish grandma, and my very mild-mannered Protestant granddad, who came from like Aryan Viking stock, you know, fiery dark grandma gypsy stock. You know, it's a weird mix. It's fire and water, really. Fire and ice, really. But my mum came out of that, and she took on my grandma's traits of disciplining children, where it's very militaristic, and you will do what you need to do because we need to keep going. Paired with the fact that the context that my dad was absolutely fucking useless. And he wouldn't help properly. He has Peter Pan syndrome. He doesn't want to grow up. Even now he's in his late 60s, he still doesn't fucking want to grow up and commit to anything that would actually lead to building something stable. He's just a fucking useless man. And apparently these just turn up. I don't know what the purpose in life is of these people, besides to teach people what you're supposed to accept and what you're not supposed to accept. My mum never really learned the boundary side of things, and by the time she understood that she was in a situation where she was going to get fucked, she already had 4 kids and a mortgage, and she was already in poverty, and it's like, oh shit, okay. Because they had moved to a newish area, assuming that it would build up and it'd be worth something, they had bought a house. And this was when my dad was working, right at the start when they first got married and they had kids. I think they had my older brother and sister, and then I came along once they had landed in Australia. My brother and sister were born in England. And then they had me in 85. Bought a house, and then my mum's hopes, I think I can safely say, was that she'd be able to stay home and raise the kids, and dad would work, and that would be like the pairing, stable environment. When she found out that she couldn't fucking rely on him because he was useless and he kept quitting his job, she then had to retrain and become a teacher herself to go and pay for us and raise the kids, because my dad wasn't raising the fucking kids. He was present. He was just like comatose near enough. If he was doing what he wanted to do, and what he wanted to do was not really interact with kids. I don't know what's that. I swear he's got some mental issues there, because I think it's bordering on like bipolar or fucking borderline personality. There's something there. But my mum took on a hell of a load. 4 kids, no money. And I remember being on the welfare line for a very long time. 8 through 12, I think she finally started working. So in my formative years, when I was 8 years old, my dad was kicking off being a berserker, and we had no money. And so the parenting style was, we are in a stressful bind. You need to do the right thing so I can keep the show running. And I can understand and I can excuse why she did take that approach, because it is fucking stressful doing that. I mean, there's no excuse to hit children, obviously. But I can understand this, the circumstances, because we've all been there. Well, I hope no one really has to go there, but sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we can't really escape our feelings, and we get stressed and we let out stuff, But yeah, my brother took the lead in being the asshole. So, and he's a lovely man now, which I find fascinating because he's gorgeous. I love that boy. He's 40-something now. I think he grew out of his ADHD, but he still has some tics. You say grow out, more like get socialized. You never really grow out. But he was a hellraiser when he was a kid. Yeah, he's willful to a fault. I mean, we're all a bit willful because we just tend to kick back. I don't like being told what to do. I have my fierce independence, but my fierce independence comes from, not being able to rely on anyone. And I suppose that's maybe where the rest of us siblings got it from as well. All 4 of us are a bit of a, you're not going to fucking tell me what to do kind of people. But we're not taking it to the point where we're like trailer trash. It's like, we're not saying fuck the police and stuff like that. We're just saying, hold up, explain yourself, and then. So, I might do what you want me to do. So we're very polite in our ways. No one's going to punch anyone over telling them what to do, But yeah, Mum raised us with an iron fist. It was militaristic. There was a lot of hazing. If you didn't do what you told, you got hit. You were hit in public. That was the most, to me, that was the most humiliating. Because it's one thing to be hit behind bars, behind doors. But to be hit in public adds an element of humiliation. You're like, I can't believe everyone just saw you abuse me. And it wasn't just, like smacks on the arm or something. She cracked me across the face in public in a Woolworths. And it was to the extent where people turned and looked. I didn't make a noise or anything, so you would have heard, the people reacting. You would have, it was not a good look for what was meant to be a woman. Sorry, I'm revving up past the truck. A woman who's meant to be a caring, nurturing figure, but it's just not a good. I mean, how often do you see an adult beat the shit out of a kid in Woolworths? It's like, yeah, it was really weird. And I was just, at the time, she had done something to my jaw because I felt it go. It snapped, clicked, snapped, something, but I couldn't move it. And I'm like, okay, I'm just not gonna. And you sort of go inside yourself at that time period. You just keep to yourself. You're like, I'm not saying shit. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to fucking look at you. So the rest of the trip around the Woolworths while we were doing the food shopping, I just kept to myself. I know if I went near her, she'd probably try and do it again. And I'm just like, no. All right, keep your mouth shut. And to some degree, that form of discipline does work. Because if... Well, fuck you too, guy. If your aim is to keep the person quiet, then yeah, it worked in that instance. If it is to build any kind of emotional relationship with them, the only emotion I felt at that point was that I want nothing to do with you. Because I don't, even then I was like, violence doesn't solve anything. There is no excuse for hitting someone, unless you're a professional fighter or something like that. I'm still waiting for McGregor. Come on, McGregor. But you don't hit kids. There's no need. They're little kids. I've met some kids who I've wanted to hit, but I do question whether it's a case of me not being able to deal with their bullshit because of my mum's way of parenting. And it's probably true, actually, because I've been shown this is what parenting is, and not that I believe it or I engage in it, but that's been considered the norm for so long for me, is to, when something goes wrong or the kid does something wrong, you hit it. Kind of like a jukebox, but you know, it will reset it and then you can carry on with your day. But no, no, it doesn't work because the kid resents you and it just breeds insurgency. And yeah, it's violence doesn't fix it. It just makes it worse in the long term. It creates this creature who's not safe, doesn't feel safe, will react. And in the end, your kid's going to turn into like some kind of cornered dog. And as soon as one day it's going to take one hit too much and they're just going to turn on you. So it's not anything that's a good thing, hitting your kids. And I've had some of my friends whose parents are the kind that talk things out. And I don't know how far that would have got, but they turned out all right. I mean, we all turned out messed up in the head, but, that might have been just the environment we were raised in, our circumstances. These kids had kind of got money, not really. But still, their parents took a different approach. You've got, like my friend Andrew, I've known since year 2. He's a good guy. He's definitely in the friend zone, I'm afraid, though. Despite our parents being like, why don't you go out with him? Despite, his parents were not well off. None of us were. But his parents chose to, that was the chopper, decided to, talk things out. And they would rather take away things that he liked, like remove, what do they call it? Something like negative reinforcement, positive reinforcement, something like that. There is a term for it. I do remember being taught it when I was doing my teaching degree. Rather than hit him. And they would just say, all right, this is your punishment. You lost access to this for a week or something like that. And it affected him in a better way than physical pain, I think. Because he grew up pretty level. I mean, he's a bit of a mama's boy because he's like 40 and still lives at home. But I think that's more of a confidence thing. His sister is not the same way. She's absolutely out there and she's got kids and she's got her own house, she's married and everything. But I think that's just him as an individual, to be honest, the way he's still living at home. But he's also partly a carer for his parents, so, not all men that stay at home with their parents and their mom are useless. Some are actually looking after their parents, semi. Yeah, because they're getting into their late 60s now too, and 70s. And then I've known some people who've had a completely spoiled background when their parents just don't bother disciplining them. There's parents that don't discipline them because they're like crackheads and stuff like that, and they just haven't got the facilities to apply discipline. They're just out of it. I've seen those, and the kids come up unruly because they got no concept of social norms and values and what you should be doing and what's acceptable. So they'll lead on, they've got a choice in themselves to actually copy what their parents are doing because it's been normalized, or they might go the other way. You never know. They might go, I don't like what my parents were doing and I'll do this. The other thing is when the parents are hands off just because they don't think the kids should have rules. So they're pretty fairly normalish parents, but there's no crack in there or anything. But they've said the kid's going to develop on its own. And these guys, I feel there might be some kind of non-cushioning there because the kid doesn't feel like they're supported. The parents are like, you will develop on your own. My parents were kind of like, you will develop on your own, but that's because I'm too busy handling every other fucking thing, or I just have no interest in this. So they build up fierce independence, and they want to stand on their own 2 feet, and they can't accept help, and I can't accept help because I see it as a weakness. I'm insane that way. But you should accept help. I tell myself, yes, it's okay to ask for help. And I have to keep reminding myself, and even though on the inside I'm going, fuck off. I know it's the right thing to do, because we need to build allies. We need alliances. But yeah, it's fine to ask for help. There's no problem with that. But they grow up fiercely independent. In a good way or as a trauma response, I don't know. But, you know, there's lots of different ways that you could parent a child. I've yet to find the best way. I know I'm watching a lot of kids getting different parenting methods in the classroom, because I see, 30 kids in a day, minimum. If I'm taking 5 classes, I'll see 150 kids minimum. So and that's 5 days a week, 10 days a week. So I see a shitload of kids in a week. And I'm watching all the different styles and learning styles and parenting styles and all the interactions they got, because I find an interest in it. That's why I did my sociology degree. It's because I wanted to understand the kids a bit better. I also did a psych degree. I wanted to understand the kids a bit better. A weird interest in things like that anyway. So I'm looking at how their surrounds are interacting with them, as well as their development in terms of their parents, the context they're in, you know, what their interests are, what they are as a natural being. So, you know, how they are, you know, genetically made up, or their own internalized intrinsic interests, and how that comes into play with the learning experience, things like that. It's really fascinating. If you like taking things apart, if you like analyzing things, it's really interesting. I thoroughly suggest going into something like that. That's why I took an interest in sociology, because I want to understand how it all fits together. I like looking at parts and then seeing how it works as a machine. It's really interesting. Which is why I get frustrated when I can't understand what the best form of parenting is. I'm like, I've seen so many versions. I would like to see what the effect is. I might do some more external research into it. But other than that, there is no one strand that works the most. I mean, I look at my upbringing, which was violent, abusive, psychologically, emotionally abusive, abandonment issues, trauma-based. A lot of trauma bonding, actually, because there was always this, this push for loyalty to the family, but the family was not great. It didn't really, everything I experienced didn't exactly promote cohesion. But my dad was like, you stay loyal to the family, you stay loyal to the family. And I'm like, what the fuck is this family that I'm supposed to be staying loyal to exactly? Because all you do is kick off and all she does is hit me at this point. And I'm like, so my siblings and I built this sort of band of brothers going on, and we were against the parents for a long time, because we're just like, especially in our teens, we're like, fuck the parents, man. That happened for a long time. Now as adults, we try and, build a bridge of communication between us towards them. So we're trying to understand why they did what they did, which is a great aspect of becoming adult, because you're trying to see when they had me, they were my age roughly. So now at this age, I'm understanding what I'm going through, if I can, and then trying to apply it to the circumstances they were in. So I'm going, okay, so why did they act this way? And how does that affect me? And how does it affect them? And how does it affect the rest of us? And what was the outcome? What could have been better about this? What could we have done differently that would have been better? Some things I've found excuses for. Some things I have not found excuses for. I'm still angry about a lot of stuff my parents did that were absolutely fucking wrong. As a human being, they were fucking wrong. Luckily, and in a horrible way, none of the abuse was sexual. I know some of my people that I work with and people with the kids I work with, they've been through sexual abuse, or they're going through sexual abuse. And I'm so glad that it's not something I had to deal with, because some of the shit I go home with after hearing what the kids are doing or going through, it's fucking soul crushing. And I'm not even the focus of that. I'm seeing it as a third party. They're getting it firsthand. That's the worst thing. It's like, these are my babies, man. And they're going through this and I can't stop it. That fucks you up as a teacher. Sorry. Getting a little bit teary there. Yeah, but you know, it's fucked up, and there are a lot of, where the parents are so fucked up, but DCP doesn't get involved. Because like, oh, the kid's fine. It's like, the kid isn't fucking fine. What are you... Some of the shit these kids tell me. Because you become as a surrogate parent in the classroom. Some of the kids, they tell me, I'm like, fuck this, I want to deck the fucker. It's like, I don't want to hand you back to this arsehole at the end of the day. I legally have to. I don't want to. It's horrible. I don't know. Maybe I'm just seeing it through a trauma lens. I don't know. But I some of the things my parents did, no excuse. No fucking excuse. You don't lay a hand on a kid. I mean, there's that episode of The Simpsons, you know, when Flanders tries to look after Bart Simpson, yeah? You ever seen that episode? I mean, they've talked about everything now. But he says something like, the only time a parent should lay a hand on a child is to pat them on the back or something like that. And then he gives us a massive ice cream in a cup. And I'm like, that's what made it memorable. It's like, I want that ice cream too. But he's right, you know, I don't think there should be an excuse to smack a child. Like, not to the extent that my parents did, or my mum did. My dad never touched us. My dad found other ways to fuck with us. But there's no excuse. No one should be hitting anyone. Like, men hitting women, women hitting men, parents hitting kids. No one should be fucking hitting anyone unless it's done in maybe defense. I don't know. And you'd have to prove there's fucking defense. Because I don't see why it's needed. I mean, I would hope that we came to this point where we're a civilization and we don't need these sort of bestial fucking traits. Unless you're doing it for entertainment, you get paid and compensated. Like, there's always going to be some kind of bloodlust in us. I can see that. Because that's a part of how we're made up. Men are designed to hunt, so we assume. Women are designed to, gather, all that kind of business. So there's going to be something in us. But hopefully we've evolved past this need to inflict physical damage on people. Where it can't be controlled, you know? I have rage issues myself. I know what it is. I know where it came from. Do I encourage or enable it? No. Because I know as soon as I get physical, I've lost my argument. I've lost my point. It doesn't help anything. It's like when they have those protests where they turn into riots. You're like, as soon as you fuck something up, you go looting, you break it, you've lost the whole point of this thing. It's like logic and civility has gone out the window. There's no point. You've lost control. You've lost it. So I cannot understand why people are willing to participate in violence like that. It irks me. It really does. And it hurts me, to be honest, even now. These kids come to school with like fucking bruises and shit, and I'm going, what the fuck happened to you over the weekend? I stayed at my dad's house. Wow. Okay. This one's getting reported, but I don't know what's going to happen. Okay. What happened at your dad's house, kiddies? And we ask him, and I'm like, I'll ask anything. I don't give a shit. I will talk about anything with the kids. Because I know what they're going to be facing when they get out of there. If they've got anything to say, any issues, problems, tell me. Oh, yeah. And I'll try and find a way to help or to mediate or... But you know what? These are my kids, man. I don't want to see them hurt. The last thing I want to see is someone hurting them. There's no excuse for it. And imagine this person who's like my mum, when she used to go off. Double the height, double the size, at least. It was not easy to take a hit from her. It was not. You felt it. You went flying. It was a lot of fear induced in that. I didn't respect her as a mother. I didn't respect her as an adult. I was afraid for years. And how can you build up any kind of relationship when you're afraid of them? And to be honest, it was just a case of her not being able to keep her emotions in check. Or my dad not being able to keep his emotions in check. and it fucks you up as a kid. And that, of course, relates to when you're an adult, because then you either, replicate what you've seen as normal, or, God willing, you actually go the other way and you say, I don't like this and I'm not doing it. That is the best form of rebellion I can see, is when you've been in a shit state your entire life and you turn around and you finally say, fuck this, I'm rebelling, I'm not doing this. And I will not carry on these fucking traits. Because fuck these guys, fuck this. It's fucking stupid. I can't understand why people would want to carry that on. I mean, I don't care what your parents did. Did you like it when it happened to you? No, then why the fuck are you doing it? I mean, I would yet to find the person who did enjoy getting smacked around as a kid. I think you've got some other issues there if you actually enjoyed the physical pain associated with that. I'd say you possibly have a kink there, some kind of thing there. But no one actually enjoys physical pain. This is why so many people avoid the gym. I mean, come on. If you want to be a real sadist, go do some deadlifts. Oh no, mountain climbers. Oh my god, I hate those things. Anyway. Oh, ex-husband trauma right there. You will do the mountain climbers, and you will like it. No, world, I hate it. Oh. Evil man. But he was a really good PT, I hear. Anyway, if you like being, tortured. I don't. I'm slow and steady. I like doing the weights, and I'm going to go for a bit of a wander on a treadmill, and it's good for me. I am not the crazy people that like CrossFit and shit like that. I like doing a bit of weights, and I do okay weights. I don't do half-ass weights. And I go on a treadmill, and I read my book, and I'm good to go. It's like slow and steady. Don't push me, don't shout at me, don't. That's from my childhood. It's like I will not respond well to people shouting at me. I don't like ultimatums, and I will not be controlled. So that sets you up for a problem later on when you have to, recognize authority. And I do recognize authority. I recognize people like police and the law and things like that. I recognize that. I can understand their purpose, but anyone else, like my ex-boyfriend trying to tell me that my beliefs were wrong. Ooh, big mistake. Do not tell me my beliefs are wrong. I don't give a fuck what my beliefs are at that point, but the fact that you're trying to tell me I'm wrong is probably wrong. It's a bit narc, isn't it? A bit narcissist. It's like, I'm not wrong, I'm never wrong. But yeah, besides the fact that you've got that whole right to believe as a human right, and that is in the Geneva Convention, right to beliefs, regardless of whatever they are, and you're not allowed to persecute them and stuff like that. That's a human right. As long as it doesn't hurt anyone, of course. But he was a fucking bigot, man. Oh, Christ. And I saw my dad in him, and I'm like, fuck you, I'm not doing this. I'm breaking this. It's like, this is a cycle. If I accept this as is, I will be, staying with my dad. There was a lot of my dad in him. Maybe that's a daddy issue in itself. But no, he got fucked off pretty quick. I'm like, I'm not doing this. No, you don't have the right to tell me what to believe and to try and control me, my thoughts, my beliefs. You just don't. Yeah, so there's a lot of residual stuff you'll find in your adult life that will come from your parents and the way you were raised, obviously. Everyone's facing that, and that's probably a no-brainer point. It's like, well, duh. And that's, yeah. I'm just finding it in the here and now as this person at this age in this context. And if anybody's on the same wavelength as me, that's just going, oh, you're right. That's what it's for. It's like, there are older people than me that have had more experience, and they go, well, we knew this 20 years ago. I'm like, oh, okay. So please, in my humble opinion, accept this is, just my opinion, It's not me being some kind of fucking psych genius shit is going, hey, behold, enlightenment. It's just me going, oh yeah, it's like this roughly. Yeah, okay. It sucks, but yeah, fuck it. Yeah. There are psych people that could probably do it way better, probably. I'm not ashamed to admit that. Those guys are amazing when it comes to, breaking shit down. I mean, all I did was get a bachelor's, so these guys went all the way to the top, and I'm like, fuck you guys. All right. I'm nearly at my school. What else can I tell you about parenting? I don't know if there's a right way. I will say that. I'm not a parent myself. I nearly was twice, but I'm not a parent myself. I'm looking forward to being a doggy parent. Different set of rules though, right? Different set of chaos. I can admire anyone that creates a child that is not fucked up. That could be genes plus good environment. That could be anything. Anything affects that circumstance. Believe me, those kids in class who have been raised by good parents are a blessing. Thank you. I'm saying thank you for that, because it makes my job so much easier, because then I know those kids are set. I can just turn to the little bastards in the class, and there's always at least 5. And okay, now I need to deal with these guys, because they're the ones that will break it down for everyone else in the room. So for the parents who have raised their kids right, oh my God, thank you so much. Thank you. As a teacher, as a human being, thank you. As I think it's our role as parents, if you are a parent, to get it right, because you've got to alleviate some of the stress on whatever's coming in the future, and I know there's a lot of pressure because parents want to get it right as well. That's why we get so many helicopter parents, these parents who want to control what their kid is, getting in the classroom, what's being served. And it's like, you don't really get a choice in that regard. You can talk to the teacher, yes, but we've still got 29 other kids to deal with. And we're one human being. Okay, we're trying. It's not like we're not trying. But you get those helicopter parents that turn up and say, well, actually, this is how you should be doing it. And you go, fuck me, I didn't know you went to uni. I didn't know you got a degree and experience in teaching and education and child rearing. Wow. And those parents I do feel like slapping, to be honest. I'm like, get out of my room. It's like going into a doctor's surgery and saying, let me operate. It's like, get the fuck out. No. Fuck off. What is this? I will take this scalpel. Have you any training? Anything. I put a Band-Aid on once. Get out. No. But I know. No, you don't. Ooh, free scooter. I get narky about that, but that's a different podcast. You can't really. Everyone's. What is it they say? Opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. You can't really avoid that. We're hoping that, we're doing the right thing. Of course, everything is chance. Everything is something could go wrong. We operate a lot on the job because there is no perfect answer. Perfection is a myth. We are trying to get it right, obviously. It's our job. It's our duty. We do semi-take on sort of like a Hippocratic oath when we take up teaching. We want to do the right thing. I mean, even outside the classroom, I'm sitting there trying to help kids learn or people learn or something like that. It's not something that you just set aside as a day job. And then when we when we hear stories about experiences our kids are going through at home, we take that home. As the surrogate parent, we're like, your parents, it's horrible. I don't know if we're just being, a bit self-righteous there, taking on your kids' problems. I don't know. We could be. Maybe we're overstepping the mark. But these are our babies too, and we're sitting there listening to these things that are happening in the home, and we're like, I'm about to jump the desk and kill this fucker. Because I would never let that. If it was my kid, I'd kill him. It's like we are fiercely protective of someone else's kids. Fiercely, it's not something you can just let go. Because you do get attached to the kids. That's all. Half of us went into teaching, basically. Some of us went in for the pay because it's oh so great, right? But some of us just like the holidays, apparently. It's like, what do you do on the holidays? I mark. I do other stuff, programming, meetings. Yeah, I don't know why they assume we get into teaching, but yeah. Anyway. I'm just sitting outside my school right now. I've turned my car off. So what do we take away from this? I can never excuse hands-on hitting a child. I can never excuse it. I've been the subject of it. I've received it. I can tell you for a fact, the effect is not what you want. It might be a short, sharp change of behavior in the immediate, but in the long term, it just creates more problems. It could replicate a cycle further on in life where the child becomes the abuser. The abused becomes the abuser. There are better ways. I would love to see more positive reinforcement in the world, because I know it's just too easy to smack a kid than to actually reason out with it what it's going to do. And sometimes it's fucking frustrating trying to negotiate with a kid, I'll tell you that. Because they're sitting there going, I'm right. And they don't understand the authority role. It's like, no, I've been there. And I know this is wrong what you're doing. And I think you should do this. sometimes it's just easier to whack. And I felt that before because that's how I was, trained to deal with child misbehaviors. But you can't do that on the job because you get fired. And we do care. So I'd love to see more instances or investigate more experiences where kids are parented right and they don't fear their parents. They don't, and they've got a good relationship with their parents. I'd love to have that kind of, I don't understand how it's made entirely. I'm still looking for it. I'm still looking for the answer, but to get kids having a good relationship with their parents so that they can, send that on. That's something we want to send on to the next generation. I'm hoping, if anyone's got any ideas, chuck it in the comments. So, yes, I do want to know. I'm still looking. Parents who have kids that are amazing, thank you so much. Thank you so much. You have no idea how much stress in the classroom that alleviates by having kids that are polite, do the right thing, and just get on with their fucking work. And I don't have to keep referring back to them getting them on task and shit like that. They just get on with it. They are there. And for the most part, in most classrooms, there's a large chunk of the kids will just get on with it and get on, there might be some chatting, but they get on with it generally. But there's always a handful of little bastards. And they are A, misdiagnosed, or B, misparented, or just dealing with shit at home. And you're like, oh, fuck me. Okay, so here's my focus group. But the rest of you, you're amazing. Thank you so much. Oh, okay. I gotta go because the parents are starting to look at me like I'm crazy. Have a great weekend. It is Freya's Day. I'm going to do another podcast on the way home. I don't know what it is yet because I pulled it out of the bag. But I'm hoping you have a fantastic day. Let's just get through this Friday. And then we can have awesome rations on the weekend or something. Something nice experience. Okay, and I'll chat to you on the way back. All right, bye.
Is an essential component of being. You don't have the one without the other, just as your buzzsaw